Tried to tell you that Nintendo Switch 2 stuff is gonna be popping. You know, people are interested in this stuff. People want to hear about it. Of course, we had the VGC report. Since then, we've had various updates. Questions were asked and answered. So there's a lot of stuff that's going to be talked about in the forthcoming weeks and probably for the rest of the year. I understand Nintendo Switch 2 speculation isn't some people's cup of tea, and I respect that. But if you do enjoy it, because I enjoy talking about it, and this is your first time here, or for whatever reason you never hit the subscribe button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 500,000 subscribers. But obviously this week we had a big report come to us from VGC. Eurogamer then said that they heard very similar things talking about Nintendo Switch 2. Obviously, that's probably not going to be the name of it, but that's just what we call it on this channel. Development kits being out in developers' hands. So things are definitely getting into motion with this. Since then, we heard about a potential screen size, memory size, and stuff. So a lot of cool stuff worth talking about this week from credible sources, not just some random forum post from some random forum thread and a random part of the internet. Now, of course, we have subsequent updates coming from this, and they're coming from two different sources, and I think they're both interesting topics that I want to talk about in regards to this system. One of these stories was actually broken on the Spawncast Patreon. Yes, there is a Spawncast Patreon where we have exclusive podcasts for Nintendo, Xbox, Ask a Developer. You can ask questions and stuff like that, a bunch of different tiers. You could even be a sponsor on one of the Spawncast network shows and get like something out there if you're promoting something or whatever. So make sure you guys check out the Patreon, because that's where this was broken. But one of the things that we talked about on there, because it's myself, Nate the Hate, and Josie Woe. Josie Woe, obviously the queen of insiders. But no, I decided to grill Nate about some of the Nintendo Switch 2 related stuff, because some of the stuff was coming from him. The 8-inch screen, which people then said that they heard something similar, 512 gigs of memory. Obviously, people heard something similar about that. There's a ton of stuff that we talked about in that video. Obviously, I'm not going to spoil it all, but one of the things I wanted to touch on is basically the storage medium, because if we're expecting games to be bigger on this system, when we're looking at what third parties are doing in terms of size of the games, we're going to go under the assumption that the Nintendo Switch 2 will be more powerful than the Nintendo Switch 1, because I mean, what would the point be of the system if that's not the case? How are we going to maximize our physical medium? Because we're under the impression that there will be physical support on this system. And if you're going to go with the cartridge-based medium once again, because I mean, you kind of have to. You can't really use any sort of disc-related stuff because of discs would be skipping when you're playing in handheld mode. How are you going to utilize these physical medias in order to maximize the space of a game on there? I don't think people want to get, you know, a game, which this does happen on the Switch, but it's going to happen way more on more powerful hardware. I don't think people are going to want to get a game, stick it into your system, and then you have to download a vast majority of it, especially considering that that would fill up your 512 gigs of space on your system pretty quickly, I would feel. But Nate actually posed an interesting theory. Now, this is sort of informed speculation. This isn't necessarily what's going to happen, but the more I thought about it, the more I kind of liked this sort of train of thought, and it involves the way that the cartridges are made. Now, the way that the cartridges are on the Nintendo Switch, they are developed with 2D NAND for the storage-based medium as far as putting information on there. But 3D NAND is actually much better. And it's cool if you don't know what I'm talking about, because I didn't know what Nate was really talking about. But then he sort of explained it, and then I found this nice little write-up here just over on Google. 2D NAND devices place storage cells side by side. 3D NAND adds another layer and stacks cells vertically. By storing more cells within the drive's chassis, 3D NAND provides more storage at faster speeds. A 3D NAND flash storage device also provides more storage at a lower price than a 2D NAND device. So that's really a way to sort of circumvent a lot of issues with this. If you're able to fit more data on a physical base cartridge, and it's cheaper than what you were using before, that's a very plausible way to sort of skirt around some of the issues that we have. One of the issues we have with the current Nintendo Switch cartridges is the fact that they're expensive, and the price of these never really went down. The largest file size we ever saw released was a 32 gigabyte file size, and most companies didn't use it. Like, this was very rarely used, if at all, for most major companies. They would rather just put a small amount on the cartridge and make you download the rest, which kind of negates the point of a physical product. So I feel like this is actually a very smart way for Nintendo to sort of circumvent what could be perceived as a problem with their current storage-based medium. You're allowing for larger file sizes to be accessible at faster speeds on this, and you're saving money in the long run. So I think that's a very viable option for Nintendo to explore, pending it is standard physical medium, because there's still lots of questions. And that kind of segues into our next thing worth talking about is, what is this system in terms of backwards compatibility? Because I know people get so mad at me when I say this stuff, and I'm not wishing it upon anything. Like, I want the system to be backwards compatible. I think everyone does, but you have to look at things from a different perspective. You know, you have to sort of take the emotion out of it and look at it from a more realistic business perspective. And when you look at things from a business perspective, I see lots and lots of red flags when it comes to backwards compatibility. You would have to have some way to have a system on a chip for the Nintendo Switch 1 on this new system. Like, that's just a factual thing. In order for the cartridges, like, you're going to use the exact same cartridges? No. So if you're using a different cartridge, are you going to have 2 cartridge slots? Are you going to have it so that the 1 cartridge slot is able to accept both physical mediums, assuming that it's going to be a standard cartridge thing? Like, I don't know. There's a lot of questions that go into that. And since there are development kits out there, you would think that we would have a clear-cut answer to this. Well, Andy from VGC was actually asked about this backwards compatibility thing, saying, hey, these people that have dev kits, are you going to ask them if there's backwards compatibility on this system? And here's where things just get really weird. And if this isn't a red flag for people, I don't know what will be. Andy said that one developer that has this development kit told him it does have backwards compatibility. Another developer who has this development kit says it doesn't have backwards compatibility. What the hell does that mean? What does that mean? If that's not a red flag to people, I don't know what will be. I feel like it's pretty cut and dry. You know, it's pretty clear whether a system has backwards compatibility or not. If it's backwards compatibility the way we're thinking about it, as in, I take my Nintendo Switch game here and I open it up, and this one doesn't have a game in it, but I would take out my cartridge and stick it in the system, and it would play right off of the cartridge. Unless it's a weird form of backwards compatibility, maybe a digital form of backwards compatibility, wherein you would take your cartridge, stick it into the system, or have some way to validate that you have this game, and then it would tie that game to your system as far as a digital download is concerned. How would that work with rentals and used copies of games, though? I don't really know, but I feel like there's something strange going on with this. I feel like there's something a bit awry when it comes to the backwards compatibility. And I know people get, like I said, people get so mad at it. Of course it's gonna have it. Look at this graph here. Look at this Nintendo graph. Every time I do it makes me laugh. But that graph does not say anything about backwards compatibility. It's talking about your Nintendo Switch account, meaning that your freaking online account will transfer over so you can play all the NSO stuff on there. It's not necessarily talking about the games available on the Nintendo Switch as far as full-on backwards compatibility. You can easily resell some of these games, and I know people don't like to hear it, but even in that initial report, some developers were actually pushing for it not to have backwards compatibility so that they can repackage, you know, better versions, more complete versions of their games and resell them to a potential large new audience. I think there's a lot of speculation going around, and there's a lot of questions, and we probably won't have answers to these anytime soon. So I kind of throw it to you guys. How do you see this whole situation playing out? Are they going to go with the standard cartridge-based medium once again? Are they going to change things up? If so, how does that impact backwards compatibility? Is there going to be backwards compatibility? Do you think it needs backwards compatibility? I've been saying the word backwards compatibility quite a lot, and my throat is a bit dry, and I would like to have my drink, which is right here. Let me know what you think of it in the comments section down below. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. Like I said at the start, subscribe if you're new. Check out the Spawncast Patreon network. There's a ton of good shows on there. More shows are coming. Q&A stuff. It's a good time over there. It's a good time. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Spawncast network link in the description box down below. I probably should have said that before. Later.